Hello, friends. This is Confessions with Amy, and I'm glad you're visiting my channel. Here we share new confessions every day.
I still remember the first day I walked into that office, full of ideas and determination, with nothing but a blank slate and a dream. At 40 years old, I wasn't some fresh-faced newbie. I was ready to build something real, something lasting. And that's exactly what I did. I started from scratch. No team, no clients, no blueprint, just me and a vision. I worked late nights, answered emails on weekends, and hustled harder than anyone else in that building. I built the division brick by brick, handpicking a team that shared my passion and grit. Together, we grew that small department into one of the company's most profitable units. Clients came knocking, deals closed, and the numbers kept rising. I wasn't just managing a team, I was building a legacy. Every success was mine, every achievement a testament to my blood, sweat, and tears. But somewhere along the way, things changed. Not because of my work, never that. No, it was politics, family connections, nepotism. One day, I was called into the office. The words were cold and vague. We're going in a different direction. No explanation, no warning. And then they told me who'd be taking over, someone with no experience, but with the last name of the owner. I swallowed the lump in my throat and walked out that door. The team I built, the division I grew, all handed over to a relative who didn't earn it. I could have begged, I could have pleaded, but I didn't. Because I knew, deep down, that my worth wasn't defined by a single job or a single company. And what happened next? The division started to crumble. Clients noticed. Morale dropped. Work slowed. But me? I was just getting started. Walking away from the office that day felt like leaving a piece of myself behind. But I refused to let bitterness consume me. Still, I couldn't ignore what was happening inside the company, the chaos that followed my departure. Without me, the division I had nurtured started to unravel fast. The new leader, my replacement, lacked the experience and drive needed to keep things running smoothly. Meetings ran over without clear direction. Important deals were delayed, then lost. My carefully built relationships with clients began to erode. I heard whispers from former colleagues, updates from friends still inside the company. The cracks were widening. The team I handpicked was demoralized, confused by the sudden shift. The momentum we had worked so hard to build? Gone. And the worst part? The owner, the one who'd shoved me out to make room for family, was furious. I heard through the grapevine that the new guy wasn't cutting it. Complaints piled up, deadlines were missed, and profits began to slip. But I was no longer waiting by the phone. No desperate calls for a second chance. I had learned something valuable. Success isn't about holding on to a position. It's about knowing your own worth and moving forward on your own terms. While the company struggled to find its footing, I took a deep breath and looked ahead, because I knew my next chapter was about to begin. The days and weeks after my exit were a whirlwind, not just of emotions, but of reflection. I had poured over 2 decades of my life into building that division, into growing it from nothing into a thriving unit. And just like that, with a cold phrase and a dismissive look, I was gone. We're going in a different direction. The words stung, but the sting was nothing compared to the deeper wound, betrayal. But I refused to let that define me. I spent the first few nights alone in my apartment, pacing, letting the silence fill the void. The phone didn't ring. No sympathetic calls. No offers to come back. Just the quiet echo of what was lost, and what lay ahead. And then a thought hit me like a spark. Why wait for someone else to give me my value? I was tired of relying on a company that didn't value my work. Tired of politics and nepotism dictating my future. It was time to reclaim my power on my own terms. So I began to plan. I reached out quietly to some old contacts, people who had always respected my work. I pitched ideas. I consulted informally. Slowly but surely, a new path started to take shape, building from the ground up again, but this time for myself. It wasn't easy. I faced doubt, the creeping fear of failure. But with every small win, every client who trusted me again, I felt a fire reigniting inside me. The resilience I thought had been shattered was very much alive. Meanwhile, the company I had left was a different story. I kept tabs, not out of spite, but out of curiosity. The division I had nurtured was floundering. The new leader lacked the experience, the relationships, the vision. Meetings dragged on without decisions. Clients grew frustrated. The team's morale plummeted. And the owner? I heard his frustration was palpable. Calls behind closed doors. Raised voices. A company that had once thrived was now scrambling just to stay afloat. In those moments, I felt no gloating, just quiet satisfaction. Because I had something they didn't: freedom. Control. My own destiny. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving, building a business that honored my skills and hard work. A place where merit mattered more than last names. I woke up each morning excited, not exhausted. I made decisions not to please others, but because they made sense to me. I hired people based on talent and passion, not on family ties. The future? It was mine to shape. And as for the past? Well, it had taught me everything I needed to know. This wasn't just a comeback story. It was a reinvention. And I was just getting started. After the dust settled on my departure, I found myself stepping into a strange new world, one where I no longer had to fight for respect or recognition. Yet, I couldn't help but keep an eye on the chaos unfolding behind the glass walls of my old office. At first, I heard rumors, quiet murmurs of missed deadlines and frustrated clients. Then, those whispers grew louder. The division I had built with sweat and sacrifice was unraveling. The man who replaced me, my boss's nephew, barely qualified for the role, was drowning under the weight of responsibility. His decisions were rushed, often misguided. The team that once operated like a well-oiled machine now floundered in confusion and distrust. I started receiving small messages from former colleagues, anonymous, cautious, but clear in their desperation. They told me about the missed deals that had been so carefully nurtured under my leadership, now slipping through the cracks, about meetings dragging on without decisions, and how morale was hitting rock bottom. The company, once a thriving force, was faltering. Profits were shrinking. The owner was livid, his frustration boiling over in angry phone calls and heated meetings. He had gambled on family loyalty over expertise, and it was a gamble that was costing him dearly. But what struck me most wasn't the failure of the new leadership, it was the arrogance that had led to it. I had been warned that age and experience were liabilities, that a fresh face was the future. Yet, this fresh face was sinking the ship. Despite the chaos, I stayed above the fray. I wasn't interested in petty revenge or gloating. I had moved on to something better. Every day, I woke up to my own decisions, my own plans, and the freedom to shape my future without interference. Meanwhile, back at the company, the cracks widened. Key clients started asking for meetings with me personally, confidentially, of course, seeking advice or hoping I might return to save the sinking ship. But I didn't bite. Not yet. Instead, I poured my energy into my own venture. I hired talented people who believed in merit, dedication, and vision. I cultivated a culture of respect and growth, something I knew was missing in my old workplace. The irony wasn't lost on me. The very division I had created was begging for salvation from the woman they'd discarded. And the boss? Furious, doesn't begin to cover it. I heard he stormed out of board meetings, his face red with anger and frustration, all because he underestimated the value of loyalty, experience, and hard work. I felt no joy in his failure. Only pride in my decision to walk away and build something real on my own terms. Because in the end, success isn't about holding a title or office. It's about knowing your worth, standing firm, and never settling for less. And right now, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Months had passed since I walked out of that office for the last time. At first, the emptiness was suffocating. No familiar faces, no routine, no clear path ahead. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, something remarkable happened. I found freedom. Freedom from the politics. Freedom from the hollow promises. Freedom from the weight of a title that no longer fit me. My new venture was growing steadily. Every client I signed, every project I completed, was a reminder that my worth was never tied to a single company. I had the skills, the vision, and the resilience to succeed on my own. Meanwhile, the company I once called home was in turmoil. Rumors reached me about how my replacement faltered, how the division I built was barely holding on. The owner's frustration turned into panic as deadlines were missed and profits dwindled. I heard about frantic calls to me, desperate pleas to return and fix what was broken, but I didn't answer. I wasn't going back, not to a place that discarded me so easily. Instead, I embraced my new life. Mornings began with a sense of purpose, not dread. I surrounded myself with people who respected me for my talents, not my connections. I made decisions that aligned with my values and dreams. Looking back, being pushed out was the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to rediscover my strength and to take control of my own destiny. And as for the boss, let him stew in his anger and regret. His short-sightedness cost him dearly. Me? I'm living proof that sometimes losing everything is just the beginning of something greater.